Welcome to the Liberty Beacon Special, and I'm your host, Roger Landry. And as everybody knows, because I tell you this every time we have a special, this is not a regularly scheduled show. This show is only brought to you when we have a special topic or a special guest or a combination of both that we feel can't be held to a schedule. And today is no different whatsoever. Now, a short preface to what we're going to be discussing today, okay? We live in a country today where the rights, the freedoms, and the liberties that we enjoyed or that we took for granted when I was a child, and again, I was born in 1954, so I've got 3 generations of perspective on this planet and in this country. What we see today is these rights, these freedoms, what we enjoyed as far as economic viability, what we enjoyed as far as plentiful jobs, what we enjoyed as far as being the beacon on the hill, the nation that everybody looked up to, the nation everybody wanted to live in. The respect we had for our own government. All of this is evaporating right before our eyes. Today, your freedom of speech is being destroyed right before your eyes. Your Second Amendment rights are under fire constantly and continuously. The posse comitatus, a thing of the past. Okay? Your ability to not to have to suffer unreasonable search and seizure, going away. Your ability to refuse medical treatment, we're on the verge of mandatory and forced vaccinations. This, my friends, goes right into the face of so many international laws, okay, that it's insane. But, okay, what we're looking at today is a degradation of our standard of living, a degradation of our rights and freedoms, a degradation of our economic well-being, a degradation of our health. Today, we live in a country that, had you tried to tell me this was going to happen when I was a youngster in the late 60s, early 70s, I would have said, yeah, that's something from George Orwell. This is never going to happen in this country. It can't happen. But today we stand on the precipice of tyranny beyond anything you can believe. And to make all of this even more in your face, we have, again today, the prospect of a presidential candidate who may, although I don't think so, has a chance, according to the mainstream media, which is a puppet of the oligarchs, who rule this country according to Princeton, not you and I. The sovereigns no longer rule this country. This country is ruled by the corporatist oligarchs, and Princeton, if you Google that, will tell you that and tell you why. But we stand on the precipice of electing, possibly electing, and I'm hoping this doesn't happen, and it looks like it may not, but an individual who has absolutely no right to run for president. There are several ex-attorney generals and highly placed legal scholars who state that some of the laws she has broken absolutely disqualify her for running for president. But then we also know that she's committed treason. We also know that she's fractured or broken more federal laws than anybody you can possibly imagine in your lifetime. But yet she still continues to run for president of this country. So we are on the verge of what could very well be, if she does get elected, a constitutional crisis in this country. Today, I have a guest who has spent his entire life working for the betterment of this country. Whether it be the military, whether it be intelligence forces, whether it be naturopathic or homeopathic medicines. Yes, he covers the gambit. This is a very interesting individual, and you will find that out for yourself. And our discussion today is going to focus around the tyrannies being committed against the people. The tyranny is being committed by a mainstream media who hypes a candidate who is not even under our own laws qualified to run for the office of president, yet she is, and they support her. The tyrannies of a government, a Justice Department, a POTUS that hides the crimes against we the people and buries them in misdirection and redirection to the point where nobody's even thinking of them. But they still exist. They're still there. They're still pertinent. They're still germane. We are looking at not only a constitutional crisis, but the total negation of what remains of our freedoms and rights. If Hillary Clinton gets elected, you will look at the completion of a progressive move to destroy America as you and me, we the people, want it to be, wish it to be, and will do anything we can to make sure it continues. My guest today is a whistleblower for Iraq prison abuse, serial chemical weapons, and other issues. He has a very high-level court case pending right now, and I'll let him tell you about that when he introduces himself. But this gentleman is Gregory Ford. And how are you today, Gregory?
Roger, I'm in fine form, all right? And I'm sitting here with my Homeland Security.
First off, do me a favor. Is
Yes.
there anything in my opening statements that you would push back against?
I'd add to, but I wouldn't push back against anything you've said.
Well,
Absolutely, I
you're
agree.
free to add anything you wish, but I'd like to start all of this off by you telling people who you are. Now, I do want to focus a majority of this hour-long show on the elections, Clinton, and the tyranny and the misdirection and redirection. But I want people to understand what your qualifications are. So give us a short rundown, just a synopsis of who you are and what qualifies you to speak out against tyranny in America.
Okay, Roger. Let me see. I'll glance over briefly the historical part. Okay, I was raised on a ranch, cattle ranch in Northern California, remote cattle ranch where I actually had to chop wood. All right, kind of like one of our past presidents. Okay, to provide heat in our cabin ranch house, and that was an old stagecoach stop. And you're probably wondering, who else lived in a cabin like I was raised in? Well, that, of course, was Abraham Lincoln. So anyway, I left by the time I got to be 17, and I left that ranch, and I thought, boy, there's got to be a bigger world than the 8,000-acre cattle ranch that I'm living on. And so I joined the military, and this was in the early 70s, Roger, all right? And what it amounted to was my first job was in the military. I joined the Coast Guard, and everybody's probably saying, well, what does that have to do with today's election? Well, my first job was presidential security for Richard Milhouse Nixon at the Western White House in San Clemente, California. And to make a long story short, we were with Richard Nixon at the end of the Watergate fiasco and debacle.
Boy,
and there was
that must have been a party and a half.
Well, for an 18-year-old young man, yes, it was. Yeah, we all sort of realized that we were seeing history unfold before us, but there we were, right in the middle of it. So it's a different aspect. We had a PT boat that we anchored right offshore of the Western White House, and we would have to go ashore every night and do security checks and so forth. And, there at San Mateo Point, and it was always very covert, very interesting. But towards the end, when the President Nixon was going to retire, and resign, what happened then was very interesting. A person, young woman, did a closed circuit broadcast, and she was from Leon Jaworski's committee, prosecution committee, and her name was Hillary Rodham, and everybody knows her, and your listeners know her as Hillary Rodham Clinton. And I can say comfortably that at this point, and she had just graduated from Yale, I believe it was Yale, law school, and she was ranting, foaming at the mouth, how Richard Milhouse Nixon, the President of the United States, did not deserve any kind of legal representation in these impeachment efforts and these hearings. And basically everybody on his security team, including me, we thought one thing: she is as crazy as a shithouse rat in August, all right? And it doesn't mean that she's not psychopathic. I believe she is. But that was very apparent at an early age that, yes, she was nuts. Her clutch was slipping back then, all right? So, and then we'll fast forward to the present time. But in the meantime, I left presidential security, went to the Caribbean, did drug enforcement in the Caribbean, and then I went to school for medical education, and on my way to getting my MD and my ND degrees. And along the way, the Army recognized me for the brilliant, dazzling person that I am, and recruited me into the intelligence corps.
All right, I know you must have said that as a joke or trying to inject a little bit of humor, but I would have to lend a little credence at least to the dazzling part. As far as the brilliant part, I think you're going to display some of that on this show today.
Okay. So I was immediately sent to, in the Intelligence Corps, sent to Boston, where I was educated as an electronic intelligence expert and collection expert. And this is a real one, not the martini drinking slobs you see on CNN.
Well,
right?
you do know, because you and I have had this discussion, but I don't know if our audience knows, is that I also did the same thing. I worked for NISC for intelligence gathering, but it was for underwater intelligence gathering. I worked in the sonar world for sonar collected information and analysis. So you were doing the airwaves and the people-to-people stuff, and I was running around on a nuclear submarine picking up data and analyzing that. So I am familiar with some of the stuff you're speaking of, and I did have a little bit of entry into that world, but most of what I did was 20,000 leagues under the sea.
Well, Roger, the crew from the Gudgeon, all right, would thank you very much, because the sonar was the method that we used when we were coming offshore in rubber rafts coming offshore, and we needed the sub to surface, the Gudgeon to surface. We would use sonar techniques to signal the sub that it was all clear. And of course, then we paddled into the lockout chambers, and then the doors closed, and we were off to a new adventure. But yes, thank you for making all that possible. So, and then we fast forward again, where I was sent to an intelligence analyst course, and where I was expected to present and brief some of the highest heads of state and the military on intelligence situations around the world at any given time. I briefed generals, senators, congressmen, leaders of other countries, and I did a lot of this work in the Central America, the Southcom, the Southern Command, and from there I spent several years working in Latin America, South America, Asia, Europe, and then I was recruited to deal with my experience of counterterrorism. I was recruited into becoming a counterintelligence agent. And that was the last bit of training I had, was the counterintelligence agency of the U.S. military. And my last bit of training was in Arizona. And here's why that's important for all your listeners, is because virtually the last day of the training in this secret base, we had a group called Able Danger. Okay, and I beg everybody to go type in Able Danger, just those two words, and do a search.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah,
Able Danger.
That's a title that brings a lot to mind for me because, again, as you're aware of, and probably most of my audience is aware of, I worked for the DoD as a contractor for almost over 20 years, plus my almost 10 years with the military. So I am very aware of what able danger means, and I strongly suggest anybody who isn't, you do a Google search on this. Please continue, Greg.
Right. Well, it was Colonel Anthony Schaefer, one of the real heroes. If anybody should run for president, it's Anthony Schaefer. All right. Unrestricted intelligence, courage, wherewithal, knows where the bodies are buried, by the way, and he gives a briefing on a situation where two groups of terrorists, quote, terrorists from Al-Qaeda, were being monitored, tracked, and this is the year 2000, the month July, where these two groups were being tracked, and unqualifiably, he gathered us into this room and said, look, everyone here, go home, set your personal affairs in order, including your wills. You might not be coming back from this next assignment. What it amounts to is these two groups of terrorists are busy taking flying lessons, and they are going to fly jet airliners, into the buildings in New York, the World Trade Center, the WTC. And they are going to also fly the other hijacked jet airliners into, quote, select targets around the Washington, D.C. area. And so, okay, all right, it sounded too fantastical to all of us. I mean, hijacked airplanes, we haven't seen that since what? North Africa, Libya, Cuba, I mean, it just sounded too much. But he said, understand this. This isn't some flaky CNN broadcast. This is serious business. They are going to attack. We've confirmed it with several intelligence agencies. We know where they're going. We're attempting to interject right now. And just about that point, somebody in my group raised their hand and said, look, this isn't our venue. We have something called the posse comitatus laws that prevent intelligence agents from gathering on U.S. citizens on U.S. soil. And he said, yes, but we have notified all the pertinent agencies, law enforcement agencies, specifically the FBI. And I'll say that again, the FBI knew about 9/11 in July of 2000. They did know this. So within 14 months, yes, everybody knows what happened, and all of a sudden, all the players in the past in my life came to the fore, and I sat there at my intelligence unit watching the second building coming down, in the World Trade Center, and also Building 7 and the strike on the Pentagon. Okay, well, it gets more intriguing from that point. Building 7. What did Building 7 have to do with anything? Well, I learned later that...
I know, but I'll let you say.
Yes. Okay, excuse me, the building that fell on its own, that wasn't dropped by coordinated focused explosives?
In free fall into its own footprint.
Yes, absolutely. That's what's amazing. As I was talking to Barbara Honegger, the expert, yesterday, about she travels the world talking about this exact event. She said absolutely it was brought down. It was a controlled demolition, and the cruise missile. I'm sorry, did I say cruise missile that struck the Pentagon in the one section that had the Able Danger Group and the auditing group for the $2.7 trillion that went missing. All right,
that Rumsfeld announced the day before,
right.
okay, on September 10th. And let me inject just another little thing here, okay? I have talked to many experts. I have friends who are airline pilots. And I have asked them, I said, could you, and one of them has 24 years in the pilot seat, okay? Could you have performed the maneuver it took to take that plane on that huge descending spiral into the Pentagon? And it had to hit, that plane had to hit with the belly of the plane being no more than 5 feet off the ground when it hit. And he said, there isn't a pilot alive, Roger, that it could have made that maneuver. Never mind some supposed terrorist, and I use the word supposed with, imagine me doing the air quotes, okay? Some supposed terrorists who were so bad they couldn't even get a license on a single-engine Cessna. Please continue, Greg.
Well, okay. The group that briefed us in our secret Arizona base at this intelligence briefing, in the flash of an eye, 80% of that group was killed when that airliner hit the Pentagon. And it virtually destroyed that cruise missile. That passenger liner actually destroyed the auditing process that was going on to find and locate that 2.7 trillion of the taxpayer dollars. Okay, this wasn't some slush fund that was available. This was the taxpayer dollars. All right, I'm sure there's not a taxpayer out there that would love to know. Okay, that the government was using your hard-earned tax dollars for nefarious business like this.
Oh, say it isn't so. Really? Greg, come on.
That seems to fall on deaf ears when I say that, Roger. I don't know why.
What about the $6 trillion that went missing not too long ago?
6.5. Let's keep this in context.
Okay,
Roger.
All right. Excuse me for 500 million. That's no small amount.
But the day before, that monument to integrity, Donald Rumsfeld, he made the announcement that no, it went missing, and they were going to do their best to locate it. Okay, well, that's their best, as they gave us the world's greatest terrorist strike, and 3,000 Americans died within 24 hours of his statement. All right, that's how out of control our government has become. People should fear their government, and boy, if you're not, in terror right now of this government, you should be. All right, that's a perfect example right there.
So let's move forward to your actions and interactions in the Middle East, because I really do want to get into this election, and we're already almost halfway through this show.
Okay, well, after Hillary Clinton said, we want to know what George W. Bush knew about this attack and when he knew it. Funny thing how history goes full circle, Hillary. And so, needless to say, Colonel Schaefer was prophetic when he said, our group would be in the Middle East chasing terrorists very shortly. We were. And so I trained up at Fort Bragg and then went to Iraq with my group. And within the first 48 hours, I was able to locate the commander, and this was at Balad Air Force Base. You might hear about Balad now in the news. I located the commander of the fighter bomber wing who had dropped weapons mass destruction, WMD, on the Kurds during the Anfal campaign, the Kurdistan attack by Iraq and Saddam Hussein. And also these weapons were dropped on close to 1 million Iranian soldiers in the Iran-Iraq war. So everybody's saying, well, what does this have to do with anything? Well, here's what it has to do with. Okay, it's very specifically an issue called WMD. And to show you how our government has misled us and lied to us, okay, I will tell you, uh, and the government is cringing now. I can feel the government cringing as I'm saying this. But here, all right, understand, 29 warheads were located. I located them underground in a bunker on Balad Air Base, and the commander of the fighter bomber wing took me there. All right, we went down underground, 2 stories down. It was hotter than an oven inside that bunker, and I thought, Greg, if you've ever screwed up in your life before, this is the last straw. I'll be dead in a few seconds, or I'll find something. So fortunately, I found something, and it was 29 warheads, 1,000 pounds. You can write this number down: 1,000 pound P400 bomb casings filled with VX/GF, uh, uh, a nerve agent, nerve gas. They're
Gas
called
bombs.
city killers. All right, and surprise, during this time period, no, unbeknownst to the public, and this is probably a first time release, there was something called the Bush document purge. Every document that connected the Bush family, the Bush crime family, to Saddam Hussein and his regime. By the way, he was our employee, if anybody doesn't know that, all right? He had been our employee since 1959. All right, Roger? That date might be
Well,
significant. And
this is something that's played out all across the Middle East because Gaddafi, at one point, worked with the United States, and Assad at one point worked for the United States. And once their usefulness is gone, or once they start to raise their ugly head, stating we've had enough of your crap, we're going to do things our way, then it's time for us to designate them as dangerous to our country, designate them as something that needs to be squashed for the betterment of humanity.
right, liberated.
Yeah.
All right, liberated.
Liberated. We're going to bring you
Right.
democracy.
So yes, as the Assads know in Syria now, as Muammar Gaddafi found out, okay, in Libya, and Saddam Hussein, all right, found out, is once you, as you say, once their use is up and over with, they are finished. Okay, the executioner is on the way, and that's exactly what we have here. Well, back in the bunker, when I'm sweating, okay, like there's no tomorrow, and I'm under a red light, I'm trying to read these documents that were taped to the bomb casings, okay, were the bills of lading and shipment, and they came from the family company, the corporate company called the Carlyle Group, all right, which George H.W. Bush founded,
Yeah.
named after the Carlyle Hotel, and I believe it's in Baltimore. I thought it was in Washington, but I think it's in Baltimore. And these weapons were reconfigured at the Fort Rucker Army facility, and then stored in Pine Bluffs, Arkansas. And from there, they were shipped via railhead when the time came against, and I underline that, against all senatorial restrictions on weapons of mass destruction being shipped overseas, all right? And the man who controlled the last vote, the only vote to stop weapons of mass destruction proliferation, was George H.W. Bush. That's an interesting, hell of an interesting connection right there. Okay, the man who could have stopped all weapons of mass destruction turns out to be its biggest profiteer, George H.W. Bush. All right, I hope I didn't stutter on this. All right.
Do you think that comes as a surprise? Well, at least not to me, and probably not to a lot of the people who listen to the Liberty Big and Special. So please continue.
Okay, so, and to make long story short, the name of the the ship that carried these weapons to Spain and for airlifting into Turkey, across the Turkish border into Iraq, was the USS Wabash, and I've had
Yeah.
people tell me from the Wabash, thank God you found out about this because we were threatened with death if this was ever brought out. And those weapons were sent immediately to Balad, where the fighter bomber wing, and with a handshake from Dick Cheney with Hussein. There's a big picture online of this, by the way. Within a few hours, they were being dropped on the women and children in the villages of Halabja. Okay, that's the famous nerve gas campaign started by Chemical Ali, a cousin of Saddam Hussein, and a couple 100,000 people ended up dying thanks to our weapons of mass destruction. These are the weapons of mass destruction that everybody was so terrified of. Well, guess what? We made them, we sold them to Saddam Hussein, and they were used to kill probably 1.2 million people. And we're worried about those folks having weapons of mass destruction. I'm sorry, I find that conflicting, extremely. All
Well,
right? So,
I would say conflicting is probably an understatement. But as a result of this, something happened to you, and we really do need to move along because I really
okay.
need to get to this election. But I
Well,
need people to know what happened to you as a result of what you found.
yes. Okay, so CNN was there 100 yards away in Balad. I expected our commander, when he actually went to the bunker, saw these weapons, and I said, "You're going to release the information to CNN." He said, "Let me handle this." Okay, I thought, okay, by that tone, here we go. We've got a cover up. And sure enough, CNN was never notified. The weapons inspectors were never notified. And then two days later, I started getting the sideways looks, okay, that most people, that when they find something sensitive to the powers that be, start getting, all right? And within 8 hours, I was on the road to a city of Samara, where I met the person that everybody can appreciate, and
One,
especially
one,
Hillary Clinton
let's
can
jump in
appreciate.
with one thing that I do want everybody to know that you did tell me, and that these weapons were destroyed. These warheads, these bombs were destroyed in an arc furnace, so there was actually no proof to fall back on. True?
Yes, we did not have the capability to destroy nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons. But the British, who were in the same room with us, okay, the same room, all right, British Technical Intelligence, we told them our problem. They contacted Tony Blair of the UK, Prime Minister of the UK, and immediately the British forces maneuvered these arc furnaces into position and destroyed those weapons secretly, very, very secretly. All right, and of course there's excellent film footage of the whole process happening right now, and on top of everything else, that's where I was introduced to something called the Cyprus Express. The several billion dollars that disappeared into the green zone. Well, Tony Blair received some of those billions of dollars for doing this service to save the Bush family, the Bush crime family's bacon. All right, the word was out. Yes, weapons of mass destruction had been found, and of course, then the big whitewash started in Washington. So by this time, I was in Samarra, Iraq, the Golden City in the Bible, and the first morning I was there, I had two Shia policemen bring me somebody very interesting that everybody will appreciate, especially Hillary Clinton. All right, his name was Al Agassi Al Baghdadi. All right, the operative name here is Al Baghdadi. All right, he is now Abu Bakr al Baghdadi. Excuse me, and he is the leader of ISIS. And that does not stand for Israeli Secret Intelligence Service. All
But
right,
it did. Why do you think they changed it to ISIL?
they changed it pretty quickly, Roger. So, so what happened then was I recruited Mr. Baghdadi. All right, and he was actually working for us. But a very funny thing happened. Uh, just because people are in intelligence work doesn't mean they're intelligent. All right, and and of course, military intelligence. Everybody refers to that as being an oxymoron. Well, I would agree with that at this point.
Well, we not only
So,
used to say that, but I would tell you that a preponderance of the individuals that I met when I was working for the DoD that were in intelligence, they pick and choose these individuals for their ability to be yes men, for their ability to kiss ass, for their ability to do what they're told without question, without pushback, and without thinking it through or thinking about the future ramifications of their actions. So when when you hear so many in the military, and I heard this quite often when I was in the military and working for the military, when you hear it's an oxymoron when you say military intelligence, there's a little bit of actual, there's a little bit of actual oomph behind that.
well, thanks, Roger. I feel better about all
Well,
my
there are
years in.
exceptions to the rules, Greg. There are, okay?
So, so there I was, okay, with this fellow. And he turned out to be, and I want everybody to listen to this. He was the commanding officer of the Mukhabarat, Saddam Hussein's counterintelligence unit, okay, organization set up by the Russians, the best counterintelligence people on earth, and he was the colonel of the Mukhabarat in Samara. All right, and and what attracted to me to the recruitment of this chap was something like this. He had complete access to their database, which had been building and collecting for close to 35 years. They knew all there was to know about the Middle East, all there was to know about the individuals in the Middle East, and also Russia and the U.S. All right, including intelligence agents in all places. So that's what was in this database. I wanted access to it, and of course, the idiots I worked for, they didn't seem to understand the relevance of it. Okay, I very clearly went to Iraq with the Keystone Cops. All right, so anyway, I started submitting my reports of very interesting issues going on, like the Persian Gulf shell game of hiding from the American people all the oil shipments, refined oil shipments coming out of Iraq, okay, and the turnaround time on U.S. shores within 24 hours and being sent back to Iraq, okay. It's a hell of a story. And then the Cyprus Express, all right, that's where our billions of dollars of tax dollars went to pay crooks, criminals, high-level politicians all around the world that were supporting the Bush family. All right, that was called the Cyprus Express, as General Karpinski would say. Okay, that it left the green zone every day at 2 o'clock and flew to the island of Cyprus, where several million, if not $1 billion each day on the C-130 transport was offloaded and put into these separate bank accounts in Cyprus. Okay, that's Nicosia and Larnaca, Cyprus. All right,
And
and then
and
the
and I've actually seen pictures of pallets stacked with U.S. banknotes, with Federal Reserve notes. I mean, stack after stack, pallet after pallet of American currency. I've actually seen these loaded on these cargo transport planes.
that's American taxpayer currency,
Yes.
Roger. Okay, the Americans that have never had, as far as I can tell, a income tax reduction, okay, just had their taxes raised, they were paying that money, okay, for all the kickbacks, according to Henry Waxman, Senator Waxman, who investigated kickbacks, payoffs, and bribes. Okay, that's what that money was used for. And I don't need to say it wasn't on the ground very long in the green zone in Iraq, because it was then shipped to Cyprus. All right, that's where your money went, folks, to pay for this corporate war. All right, in Iraq was Cyprus, and And so almost immediately, something happened when I sat in on a couple of interrogations. Everybody loves this part. I had people contacting me from our command, which was now located at Abu Ghraib prison. And when several of those people, not everybody's a bloodthirsty sadomasochistic torturer, okay, but several people came to me and said, "Look, you're the doctor here. You need to see what's going on. All right, please, you need to come down and look at people being garroted, people being burned, people being tortured, people being murdered, people being beaten to death in the showers." All right. I hope my commanding officer heard that, because he sat there on a folding chair and watched somebody being beaten to death that was innocent, okay, of any terrorism or any kind of crime. All right. And so that's what happened. When it got out that I was checking on the condition of 53 people that had been sent there, and they had all disappeared and died. Okay. They were taken out and killed, basically beaten to death and killed. Okay. I immediately started getting, and I reported this to the command. Surprise! I was forcibly grabbed, when I refused to remove the charges that I'd leveled against the command. The 205th Military Intelligence Unit, okay, in Iraq. I refused to back down, refused to take or remove the charges. Immediately, I was physically grabbed. It took 4 guys to grab me, okay, 4 guys, and strapped me to a stretcher where I was loaded onto a plane, and without orders, I was flown out of a war zone without any orders at all. I mean, there's almost nothing in history about any such thing ever happening, because that basically makes you AWOL, especially during a war. So I was immediately flown out, and en route to Germany, we had to go through German airspace, and I had a series of what are called MK Ultra interrogation drugs administered to me. And these are the same drugs that were administered to Soviet intelligence agents because they had training to resist interrogation. So I was administered these drugs, and they make you coma-like. It's not like the movies where you think you know it's coming. No, you're out like a light. And immediately when I came to, 4 hours later, we were actually headed over the top of the Rock of Gibraltar and headed into Germany. And I got word, that yes, Germany was contacting the airplane, asking if I was on board and if I was being held against my will. And of course, immediately the training was, no, everything's fine. We don't have anybody on board this plane by that name, and everything's fine with the world. It's just wonderful, because Germany, does want to resist its past reputations of this type of behavior. So they're extremely careful about protecting human rights and civil rights, like this country used to be. Okay. So anyway, I landed in Germany, madder than a mashed cat, as you might imagine, and I contacted my attorney, who fortunately I was able to contact before. He notified the commander, Stan McChrystal. All right. And my attorney told Stan McChrystal, General McChrystal, the man who Obama had to fire, all right, not too long ago, told him that I would not arrive in a body bag. I would be vertical and breathing, and he would be there to meet the plane to make sure. So I think that saved my life at that point. So anyway, I want your listeners to go to my court case, and because it's going to the Supreme Court, it was filed on Thursday, this last Thursday, and it's case number 14-15050, and I'll say that again, 14-15050. As I had a court reporter tell me, it's the most spectacular court case he has ever seen filed. Okay, and this was with the Ninth Circuit Court in San Francisco. Okay, so it's shocking, and I've had nothing but attacks from the CIA, okay, from the Department of Defense, from from the Department of Justice, oddly enough. Okay. I thought they were supposed to be apolitical. All right.
Whoa,
But
whoa, 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 whoa. All right. You just made a statement. I thought the DOJ was supposed to be apolitical. Now, excuse me, we're at the point right now, and we will be running out of time here real quick. I want to focus down now that people know who you are, where you've been, what you've done, what you've suffered, what you're aware of, truthfully aware of, okay? I want to focus down now, and let's start with the DOJ. Let's start with the Department of Justice, which is basically the body, the agency of this government, which is supposed to protect the laws. We are a nation of laws. And who is the prime guardian of those laws? It is an executive agency called the Department of Justice, the DOJ. All right? In that Department of Justice, what we have seen is lying to Congress, perjury under oath. We have seen the hindrance of FBI investigations. We have seen the destruction, okay, of information that has been subpoenaed by Congress. We have seen DOJ employees taking the fifth and asking for immunity in congressional hearings. We have seen a individual who is running for POTUS, running for President of the United States, who by the known actions, her known actions, is absolutely and unequivocally disqualified from holding any government office all the way down to dog catcher. But yet, we have a DOJ that is not pursuing, a DOJ that is hiding, a DOJ that is colluding or complicit with this individual. And what this is doing is it is telling the entire American population, we the people, that there are two sets of standards. A standard for the powerful elite and a standard for you and me. I wrote an article not too long ago about Hillary Clinton's making Orcon information, which is originator controlled, which is one of the most segmented and classified areas of information you can possibly have in the government, making it available on open servers, making it available to people who had absolutely no security clearance whatsoever. In that article, and you and I have talked about this, but I want everybody else to know about this, Greg. In that article, there is a video I put in the article. And if you go to the Liberty Beacon and you put red flag in the search bar at the top on the home page, you'll come up with the article. Okay, red flag. In that video, you see, okay, the Inspector General of ODNI, the Inspector General of the Intelligence Services of the United States, all of the intelligence services, stating to the Congressional Hearing Committee that they could not have access to the information that was on Hillary Clinton's server and was being transmitted via an unsecured server to people who had no security clearance whatsoever, because it was beyond the security clearance of that committee. Now, the guy who was running the committee, the chairman of the committee, looks at this Inspector General and he says, "You mean to tell me Congress can't see it, but she was transmitting it on an unsecured mechanism to people with no classification at all?" And he not only agreed, but he stated to the chairman, this is in this video, people, I can't make this stuff up, go watch the video. He states to the chairman of this congressional committee, "Mr. Chairman, this is the Inspector General, has one of the highest clearances you can get in this country. Mr. Chairman, I didn't have access to that information because I hadn't been read into the program and I didn't have the clearance." So when we discussed the Department of Justice, and you fired this trigger, Greg, you started this rant going, we are looking today at a agency whose sole intent is the preservation of the integrity of U.S. law, that has absolutely, in a very treasonous fashion, destroyed the rule of law in this country. Have I got this wrong, Greg?
You have my blessing completely.
All right,
And
take
that
that
would,
football and run with it.
well, why would the FBI be right now across the street from the Department of Justice in Washington with warrants for arrest, waiting to walk across that street and serve those members of the Department of Justice?
It goes beyond
Right?
that. There's members of Congress,
Arrest them.
there's senators, and there are senior government officials on that list as well. And I wouldn't be surprised that if some of those charges are levied against POTUS as well.
Well, let me see. I agree, since I'm a bit of an expert, a real expert on ISIS, and I received the word that yes, there were three entities involved in the construction of ISIS and Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. One is Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State. Hillary Clinton, all right, with the assistance of Saudi Arabia, of course, footing the bill, and the POTUS, as you like to refer to him, as the President of the United States, Obama, Barack Hussein Obama.
Well,
all
there's
right?
also images, pictures that are all over the internet of a certain senator, somebody who claimed everybody had all kinds of pity for him because he was a captured military individual in Vietnam who went through all kinds of stuff. But we've since found out that he sang like a bird and that he literally helped the Viet Cong in their propaganda. There are pictures of this individual, and I'm sure you know who I'm talking about, with the head of ISIS and ISIL.
Well, okay. On that note, we can see now why ISIS is rampant, running out of control. By the way, they are not being defeated at all. Okay, hardly. I got word of that virtually all my references and briefings, to public media, like you, Roger. Okay, everything I say is going directly to Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. No, and no one else. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, and I can confirm this. And I want our government to listen up and the DoD to listen up. This largely came from somebody who was working for us and led the army of resistance against.
I did think you were going to give the name. For anybody who doesn't know, I'm talking about Senator McCain. Okay?
Yes.
All right. And I apologize, but please continue.
Right. Okay. Yes. And well, this one fellow who suffered what I suffered, he led the army of resistance against Gaddafi. He overthrew Gaddafi, and our government was so grateful. Okay, especially when they found out that he knew several sensitive issues, that they abducted him, tortured him like they tortured me, and then for good measure, okay, I guess this is the American way. They brought his family in and tortured his family in front of him. All right, and he is running for his life right now, and he does have a court case like mine, and his name is Abdel Belhaj. All right, Abdel Belhaj, and say that name to Hillary Clinton. All right, especially before she gets elected. Abdel Belhaj is alive, not well, but alive, and he has something to say about the state Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and the Stinger missiles, that 400 that disappeared, that are now bringing down planes all over the world. All right. Yes, the media is not reporting that funny thing. All right. And also sold the radioactive isotopes, 20% to Mr. Putin.
20% of our uranium reserves, yes, are now owned by the Russians.
Thanks to Hillary Clinton. All right.
And the Clinton Foundation.
Where does this break off about high treason? All right. I don't understand this.
Well, again, just a few minutes ago, I stated that the DOJ was perpetrating treasonous actions against the U.S. You need to understand that I'm not just talking about Loretta Lynch's DOJ. Okay, I'm talking about the Department of Justice that has existed since Clinton's days, because the amount of pay for play and the fact that her unsecured communications, and this is actually another piece of a congressional hearing you can find a video of, where they are stating that the information that went out across her server in emails was stating the location of our ambassador just prior to the attack in Benghazi, on open channels, unsecured channels. The only way these terrorists knew, okay, that this guy was in Benghazi when this happened was because of information they probably gleaned from an unsecured transmission of information on the, at the time, okay, Hillary's communications. Not only did he probably die as a result of her treasonous actions, but there are 4 other intelligence assets around the world that have died as a result of open communication on her server that nobody's talking about. So you're right. Why isn't treason being trumpeted across the frickin' country associated with this woman? Why?
Well, one thing I can say, Roger, okay, I can say several things, but one thing for sure is this. I confirmed this with General Karpinski, 3 days ago, that there's something that is endemic to all Secretary of State operations. You don't have to be a genius to use it, all right? You don't have to use the term technophobe, okay, to justify not using it, okay? It's called STU. That's an acronym for a Secure Transmission Unit,
Yes.
all right? And it's every single office for the Secretary of State has a secure transmission unit. All right. Now that's how secure the Secretary of State's communications have to be. Not I don't feel like using it today. They have to be secure, and all you have to do is turn a key on your phone, and they're secure. All right. Hillary Clinton claims that she is a technophobe. That when she became a lawyer at Yale, she never learned how to use a computer, a desktop, laptop computer. That when she was First Lady of Arkansas, okay, for 8 years, she didn't know how to use a computer. When she went and became Senator Clinton, she didn't learn how to know how to use secure information on a desktop computer. When she became Secretary of State, she didn't use a desktop computer. When she decided to run for President of the United States, she hasn't learned how to use a secure unit, and a desktop computer.
Yeah, but
no.
you and I both know. You and I both know something because we existed in a world. You and I both for at least 3 decades existed in a world of classified information. We know that every time, because I originally had a confidential clearance, then I went to a secret clearance, then I went to levels above that, several levels above that, and in each case, we were given a briefing and we signed a letter stating that we were not only aware of our duties in maintaining classified information, but the repercussions that were mandated if we abused classified information. Can you even guess how many times as the First Lady, as a senator, and as the Secretary of State, she was given this briefing and signed this document?
Security custodians do that on a regular basis.
Yes.
Especially at that level. So, in other words, she's either lying, she's either incompetent, or she's corrupt.
Well, you've also got to remember that 39 times she told Congress and the FBI, I just don't remember. Or she thought the C, which indicates confidential material on her emails, was an indication that things
Clinton?
were in alphabetical order. Are you freaking kidding me?
What? She thought it meant Clinton, probably,
No,
right?
she said she thought it was C, meaning things were put in alphabetical order. Well, where the hell was the B and where the hell was the A?
Well, this all bespeaks to the fact that if she is elected, this is where the integrity and security of this country is going, right into the crapper.
All right,
All right.
question for you. Question for you. Okay? And I really want everybody to hear your answer on this because I know the answer. I lived in this community for 3 decades. Okay? If you or I, okay, would have done 1/100th of what is provably actions and transactions that occurred on her watch, what would happen to you or I, Greg? What would happen?
I'd be making license plates still, and I'd be probably making government furniture
In
in
Leavenworth.
Leavenworth.
Yes.
In Leavenworth, absolutely.
And you would
So,
probably consider that your release date would be, oh, I don't know, a decade or two after your life expired.
I asked General Karpinski, who was blamed for the entire Abu Ghraib fiasco. Okay, and by the way, she said not too long ago, she said, "Thank God you and I have gotten together after this whole business, okay, happened," because she had no idea that this was going on behind the scenes. But she stated, "Greg, if you had committed as an intelligence officer any of these criminal actions that Hillary has done, yes, that would be where I would be right now, in the Midwest in Leavenworth." And she said, "Surprise, I was even informed when they had that hearing on Abu Ghraib that if she had released any classified information, that she would be in Leavenworth, probably not with me, but fairly close. All right, as a general, And now this General Cartwright, look at this General Cartwright talking about the Stuxnet okay issue,
Yeah.
okay, the computer system destroying virus that we created and is rampaging around the world in defense systems. All right, he spoke briefly about it, and he is facing prison right now. A 4-star general is facing prison. So
Well,
why is Hillary Rodham Clinton, not wearing blue denim? I don't
why
understand this.
why is it that I can present? And again, it's right in the article. Just go to the Liberty Beacon and type in red flag into the search bar. You will find the article. Why is it I can show you a congressional committee chairman talking to the Inspector General of ODNI? Okay? This is the guy, the Inspector General for all of our intelligence services in the United States, where he is clearly stating, you can watch this guy saying this, okay? The information you're asking for, Mr. Chairman, I can't make available to you because you don't have the need to know. It's Orcon. You haven't been read into the program, and as a matter of fact, I didn't have the clearance, nor did my staff. We had to get those clearances and be read into the program in order for that information to be made available to us. Now, this is information that Hillary Clinton was transmitting from point A to point B on an unsecured server to individuals who had no security clearance whatsoever. Never mind the chairman of an investigative committee for Congress or the Inspector General of ODNI. This is blatant proof that she compromised some of the most sensitive intelligence this country has, but yet she's not in prison and she's still running for president. Greg, do you think I'm making too much of this?
Well, Roger, on the face of it, no, you're not making too much of it. But there's 136 million people, and this is the terrifying thing about the George Bush leave no imbecile behind education program, because those same imbeciles are about to vote for her.
Well, I don't think it's
136 million.
I don't think she's going to get 136 million people behind her. I would say out of 320 million people, you're probably only looking at a voting public in this country that approaches about 200 million. Okay, So I don't think she's got 136 million people behind her. Either that or I'm reading things wrong. The last polls I saw, not the mainstream media, which is a puppet of the Progressive Democratic Party and in Hillary Clinton's back pocket, but the actual true polls that I have seen. And one of these polls, the most accurate poll ever run during this election cycle, the most accurate poll ever run. And let me explain this poll to you, okay? It wasn't in sampling 100 people like CNN does, or 1,000 people, which is heavily loaded down with Democrats and coming up with, okay, the race is close. Okay? Even oversampling Democrats in a small demographic, they come up with the race is close. I'm talking about a poll that was conducted with a demographic of 33% Republican, 33% Democrat, and 34% independent. Okay. Now, who was polled? 1,000 people in every single one of the 50 states. So 50,000 people, not 100, not 1,000, 50,000 people with an evenly split demographic were polled, and the results were 69% Trump, 19% Hillary, and the rest for independents. That is the most accurate poll, but you will never hear about that, okay? And then there's one more poll. And this is in another article I wrote. And this was conducted by a company that is contracted by the Clinton Foundation. When you go and look at the PDF, and anybody who wants this document, it's in one of the Hillary articles I've written, and it's on the Liberty Beacon. You click on this. This is a leaked document. At the header of the document, you find this company's logo and the Clinton Foundation logo. And in it, remember, this is a poll that was commissioned by the Clinton Foundation to find out where Hillary stood. It states 77% Trump, 12% Hillary. Stop and think about this. When's the last time you saw a poll like that? This is the Clinton Foundation's own internal poll showing this. But yet you look at CNN, you look at ABC, you look at NBC, they're within a point or two of each other, and Hillary's still got a slight lead. That's bullshit. You triggered me again, Greg. Sorry about that. No, I'm not sorry.
Well, I do feel a little better, all right, but that would probably explain why Hillary transferred out of the Clinton Foundation $1.8 billion to Qatar.
Yes.
Okay.
And why they're preparing this beautiful, luxurious, huge mansion for a U.S. VIP that will be shortly occupying it.
Well, I feel better. Okay. If for your listeners, I feel slightly better. All right.
I never lie. I never exaggerate, and I never challenge people to prove me wrong. I dare them to. What I just told you is a fact.
Day after tomorrow is when this all, when the rubber hits the road. I want to just see how brutally stupid, these voters have proven themselves in the past, but maybe with an enlightenment from Julian Assange and WikiLeaks, maybe, just maybe, we'll avert this disaster. It's a complete disaster.
Are you taking into account the voting machine rigging? Are you taking into account the ballot box stuffing? Are you taking into account illegals voting? I just wrote an article today, just published it a few minutes ago, where President Obama is on mainstream media TV saying that if illegals vote, no, ICE isn't going to come after them because we don't look for those kind of things. So if you go out and vote, you're probably not going to get caught if you're an illegal alien. If you consider there are between 20 and 30 million illegals in this country, and if even a good portion of them vote, who are they going to vote for? They're going to vote for the candidate who's going to continue the sanctuary cities, who's going to continue giving them free medical, free education, housing, $1,000 Walmart cards. They're not going to vote for Trump because they know if they vote for Trump, he's going to push them outside the country. So when I say that there are a lot more Trump people out there than the mainstream media is telling you, Are you taking into account the massive effort at stealing the vote from the American people, Greg?
Well, okay. If you're asking for my opinion at this juncture,
Obviously.
and your listeners are listening, it all goes back a few years to a little place called Mena Airport in Arkansas. All right, and the
Yes.
arrangement that was made, well, there, if the Clintons were governors, that was the governor and the first lady. Actually, that wasn't a Freudian slip when I said governors. Um,
Yeah.
goes something like this: if the agency led by George H.W. Bush could fly in, unlimited amounts of cocaine into the Mena drug hub airport, that if there was no prosecution, no investigation, that the Clintons would continue on with their careers and become president. Okay, President Clinton. Gee, it looks like something happened there. They would have the full services of the election engineering experts. What is it? Choice Point, aka the Diebold Group. All right. So they would have, which is very effective. I mean, it got the village idiot son of theirs elected twice. Oh, with the hanging chads and all.
Don't hold
Okay.
back. Tell us how you really feel, Greg.
Okay. And for allowing the importation from the Zapata oil platforms in the Caribbean to ship, okay, not through customs, but these were working helicopters, ship that cocaine up to the airport at Mena, Arkansas. Okay, this is the agreement that was made, and even when things went sideways, and Bill Clinton got himself impeached, it still didn't matter. Nothing happened. Big laugh, big joke at our system, right? I mean, he gets caught lying, to Congress, and surprise, he's still president.
Well,
Nothing's going to happen
let me
with these
take that
criminals.
one. Let me take that one step further. If my husband, okay, yeah, if I'm Hillary and God, thank you, I'm not. But if I was Hillary and my husband and had been accused, and the actual women were sitting right in the audience at one of the debates, had been accused over and over again of rape. If I was Hillary and I had that weighing me down, and I had the fact that all of this crap that's coming down on her, provable crimes against the U.S., provable acts of treason, provable violations of federal laws left and right. If I had all of this weighing down on me, not only would I not want to run for president, but I think I'd be hiding somewhere, because I would know that to a vast majority of the American people, I'm not only not trusted, but I'm hated. But yet, you don't even see them flinching. It's like this is so normal and so natural to them. They continue every day as if they are untouchable, as if they are, I don't know, above the law. Have I got this wrong, Greg? Why don't we see this weighing down on their conscience? Do they have a conscience?
Well, as they say in criminal circles, that means that you're in the car. No matter what happens, you're in the car. All right? And to show how this happens, okay, and that's still in play, something, in the last 2 weeks, bad old Donald Trump was talking like a football player in the locker room, and which guys tend to do, okay, albeit,
I have.
hey, I have too. I mean, every guy I know talks like that.
Absolutely.
Okay,
When there's no women around to
usually nothing to
disrespect.
it.
Yeah.
Well, there's usually nothing to it. Okay, wishful thinking, whatever. But needless to say, that tape I find is very interesting, and hardly anybody paid any attention to it. That tape was made of Donald Trump carrying on like a good Scotsman, by the way. Was released by the nephew of George H.W. Bush. Okay, I want to hear some analysts out there, report in on this. What does that mean? That means that was the Bush crime family were using one of their clubs to try to beat Donald into some kind of submission and give all these holier than thou phony baloney types something to pounce on in support of Hillary Clinton.
Well,
That's the way I'm seeing this.
I would say that it actually backfired, just like so many of these progressive moves lately, where they think that the public is going to react. They think that the public in this country today is still so ignorant, so apathetic, so dumbed down that reaction, they can pretty much, I don't know, understand what our reaction is going to be. So many times lately, I have thrown out to our audience over and over again that the progressive message is backfiring in their face. Prior to the release of that audio, okay, Trump had done his damnedest not to bring up the Bill Clinton rapes, not to bring up the sexual innuendo. And of course, we now know that Hillary is being accused and more than likely guilty of some of the same things that Bill is, with her trips to Rape Island on the Lolita Express. But the point here is Trump had avoided that because he felt that he would lose credibility for attacking Bill and Hillary on this matter until she opened the floodgates with that audio. Once that was done, what they in fact did was give Trump the ability to take the gloves off and use all of this stuff against Bill and Hillary. And he did. So this is another huge, circumstance of the progressives' message blowing up in their frickin' face. Have I got that right, Greg?
You know, I think about this time that Jeffrey Epstein, the infamous Jeffrey Epstein,
Yes.
ought to be brought into the picture. All right, he owns the planes that fly these nasty, nasty people.
Senators, congressmen, high-level government officials, the Clintons.
Right.
Yeah, you're right.
Right, to Orgy Island, but here's, as I mentioned yesterday to you, Roger, is being in the counterintelligence group that I was with. One of our jobs was to do background inspections on politicians, anybody that needed a TS, top secret special background investigation.
TSSI
special
clearance.
departmental
Yes.
information. Right. There we go. So anyway, I asked my chief at the time, section chief, I said, why don't we do background clearance checks on presidential candidates? And he looked embarrassed and looked like he was going to find the nearest door, but he finally came around and said, it's because everybody else we can check on, and if we give them the boot, it's non-political, like cabinet members, for the president, and something like that. So, but then we have these people that by the time they get into the position to run for president, they are so dirty and controllable, they would never pass anybody's clearance. My grandmother making Toll House cookies would pass a clearance before these folks would.
Now,
and
I not only agree with that, but again, there's something else in our discussion yesterday. In 1932, a quote that's still being used quite a bit was made by Franklin Delano Roosevelt, where he blatantly stated, presidents are selected, not elected. What you need to bring someone like that, the corporate elites that actually rule this country and a vast majority of the planet, what they need is somebody who's not going to want to put their initiative forward. Somebody who's going to listen, somebody who, when you pull the strings on the puppet reacts accordingly. So you need somebody that's damaged goods, somebody that the public looks up to, but in reality, well, maybe they're gay, or maybe they had a huge coke habit, or maybe, and you could go on, and maybe they weren't even born in this country, and I could go on and on. So once you have these things, now you mentioned the Lolita Express, and we mentioned, Epstein's Island. it's pretty much becoming common knowledge that there is a Mossad tie-in here, Israeli intelligence, whereby whatever happens on that island is recorded for posterity's sake to entrap these individuals into that status of perfectly, responding puppets. Have I got that right, Greg?
I think we should bring in, okay, besides Jeffrey Epstein, okay, with his mysterious funding of intelligence operations, okay, yes, the Israelis have filmed uh, William Jefferson Clinton, raping a 13-year-old
13-year-old girl, yes.
And all on film. My goodness.
And
okay.
I got to tell you right now, Anonymous is dangling that all over the internet, saying they're going to release that video.
Oh, excellent. All right. That's wonderful.
That's what Anonymous
I
is
think
saying.
I think the public should see that because the Israelis are not denying it now, which is, can you imagine? Mossad is not denying it? Okay. So that's how, the veracity of this issue is 100%.
All right, look,
it's provable.
I hate like hell to do this because when I have discussions like this with people who have done a lot of the same things I've done in life, or at least have visited the same places and had the same types of experiences, it's very, very hard for me to shut this down. This was supposed to be an hour-long show, and again, we're approaching the 90-minute mark. And I hate it when we have to close down a conversation like this. But I would like a closing statement from you, and this is what I'd like you to focus on, please, in about 2 or 3 minutes. Explain to the audience here, from your perspective, not from anybody else's, but from your unique perspective, what are the ramifications if Hillary Clinton does win this election?
Well,
or
the
steals
damage that
it.
it's done
I should
to
say
us,
steals it.
Okay, the damage that is done to us to this point, this is like a Roman carnival, all right? And I get the feel, and from my sources, that the whole world they're not even laughing anymore. They're just stunned, open-mouthed and stunned.
Yes.
Most of the world.
I get the same thing, and this project is spread out over 34 countries right now. So, yes, I'm getting the exact same responses.
I would expect this if we were in a let me rephrase that. Most of Latin America now is pulling away from America as a result of the attack on the Ecuadorian embassy, ordered by Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. And South America is removing itself from NATO.
So just say Banana Republic, if this was a Banana Republic.
A brass hat Banana Republic. Yeah, that's what we are turning into. But the whole world can't believe it. This has all started happening since the Supreme Court decided that corporations were individuals, and individuals. I'll believe a corporation's an individual when Texas starts executing corporations. Put it that way. All right.
I love it. I'm going to plagiarize that.
Please do. You're free to.
It.
All right. But further, okay, is that ever since the Supreme Court made their decision, okay, you've seen nothing but buffoonery and carrying on, and this feeding frenzy by our own corporations. Obviously, the laws of the land don't mean anything anymore. And if anybody doesn't believe that, look at my case. I gave the number 14-15050. Okay, what laws mean in this country anymore? All right. So as far as I'm concerned, this whole process has basically here, and I've got my commentator in the background. Izzy, tell Roger and the listeners what you think. Tell them. Go ahead. Okay, that's right. We've gone to the dogs, haven't we?
I love it. Oh my God, that was perfect.
Izzy, you agree? Okay, there it is. All right.
Well,
you heard it from my Homeland Security. What's going on with this election? All right.
So you've got about 1 minute. What do you think the repercussions are going to be if she's elected?
Okay, disaster, complete disaster. All right, unqualified, unmitigated disaster. I've been involved, in the intelligence community over the years, watching elections all over the world happen, and they always happen. The most disastrous ones happen when you get a highly controllable, questionable candidate that has to answer to corporate interests before the interest of the people that they're representing. And when you start seeing organizations within that government turn on each other and start circling like a pack of wolves, that's when things deteriorate. And then, of course, the inevitable impeachment process happens, and that even tears a society even farther apart.
Okay.
So that's what I see is it will be the end of our days as the premier country of the world.
All right. My closing statement here, okay, and just bear with me for a second, is right now we know for a fact that we have a Department of Justice where the FBI is perched to go across the street and start arresting high-level individuals in the Department of Justice, and this goes all the way up to the top. We know for a fact that there is dirt in the FBI because one of the gentlemen, or the gentleman who was put in charge of Hillary Clinton's investigation, his wife received $675,000 via a couple of Hillary's cronies for her local run for senator. So we know that the FBI, although they're trying to scrape some credibility up, has been compromised. We know that the Department of Justice is rotten to the core. We know that POTUS is involved in this. President of the United States is involved in this on so many levels that are just now starting to become available. About 6 months ago, I was asked why Hillary wasn't in jail. My answer on that show, and I believe it was on Chuck Ocelli's show, somebody you and I are both friends with, Greg, and Chuck is also a part of the Liberty Beacon Project. My answer to him was because the Clintons have so much dirt due to complicity on so many people in the government that they know to take her down will cause ripples throughout the government that will be catastrophic. And this, my friends, is exactly what you are seeing right now. But let me explain something to you, okay? You cannot continue with a house this dirty. You cannot, okay? We absolutely have to clean house. If we need to go through a constitutional crisis in order to clean this house, then let's get it done now. Let's clean out the Department of Justice. Let's clean out the FBI. Let's clean out the executive branch. Let's freaking clean house. Because to allow 4 more years of business as usual means the end of the America you and I know. It will cease to exist. It's damn close to that right now. This is the most critical and crucial election in American history. That's not an overstatement. That is a fact. Whether or not we become a dictatorial banana republic, not only in suspicion but in fact, depends on who wins this presidential election or who we allow to steal this presidential election. Nothing you can do is as important as ensuring that Hillary and her cronies do not get back into the White House. Nothing you can do means more for the future of this country than making it absolutely 100% sure this woman does not get elected. Because even if she does get elected, and I don't think she will be, you're looking at a quagmire, a constitutional crisis over the next 2 to 4 years, with her constantly being under subpoena, constantly being indictments being handed out, and this country will wither and crash in upon itself. If we want this country to be ours again, if we, the sovereigns of this country, don't stand up and take it back, it was never theirs to take from us. Any government left to its own devices shall eventually accumulate power and wealth onto themselves at the expense of the governed. And if we allow this to happen, we have nobody to blame but ourselves. They're doing what any government naturally does when not held accountable. We are the only thing that stands between total chaos and the total collapse of the America we know and love and wish to live in. It is up to us. Nobody else. Don't look at the government to clean themselves up. Don't look at anybody else to help you. Look at us. It is our task to make this right, and nobody else is going to do it for us. All right, what did you think of my closing statement, Greg?
Well, Roger, give me 30 seconds and I'll respond. Okay. Something called copper green. Those are the most terrifying words in the world right now.
Okay.
Copper green. Okay. And
yeah,
it
you got to
was
run this through real quick, my friend.
Copper green. Guess what kind of response you'll get when you're running it through. All right. It is in 120 countries. It is a program for torture, for rendition, for political assassination.
Yes.
And guess who signed off on it? All right. Guess who started it? It was Bill and Hillary. All right. Bill and Hillary signed off on it initially. All right. And if you think, oh, that's okay, it's not American citizens, you're speaking and listening to an American citizen who was, because I tried to stop war crimes of brutality and torture that this medical person should never have been forced to listen to, had to treat, okay, I was tortured, all right, and abducted out of a war zone, okay, and the rendition and the fallout from this case, it will be forever, all right, and if you don't think so, look in southern Arizona right now where FEMA camps are being built with high-speed magnetic levitation trains to carry people just like you, Roger, myself, the people that have spoke out and tried to stop this from happening. We are going to be on that train, all right, to this camp, all right?
And that speaks exactly to what I just said. Again, people, there's nobody coming in the last minute charging over the hill on the beautiful white steed to save us. This country was always intended to be ours. We were the sovereigns, We have acquiesced that position over time due to ignorance and apathy. We must make a stand now, and in a very peaceful revolution. Peaceful! I'm not calling for any violence. I abhor violence. In a very peaceful revolution, stand up and take this country back. And how do we do that? We turn out in such massive numbers and make sure that Hillary Clinton never gets into the White House. And with that, Greg, I want to thank you so much. I knew how this conversation was going to go. We had a dry run yesterday. And I thank you for your time, and I thank you for everything that you put into the conversation, my friend.
And I want to thank you, Roger, and also the listeners that have taken their time out of their days to listen to this broadcast. And I'm more than willing to come back if your listeners want me back.
Oh, you'll be back.
My pleasure.
The next time it'll probably be on our new TLB TV network. So okay. They're all going to get to see your...
And hopefully we'll have somebody like Donald Trump, in the Oval Office, and not this very, very dangerous psychopath, okay, that is masquerading as a legitimate candidate. All right?
I agree, my friend. And for everybody listening, this has been another TLB special. And we wish you all a very good day, if you can have one.